Hello, everyone. A very good afternoon to all of you. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Divya, and I'm from Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, Hyderabad. We welcome you all to today's session on 22 years of Indian cyber law, a corporate and netizen view. We hope that this webinar will be a fruitful and an engaging one for you. Now, let me introduce you to our speaker for the day, Dr. Sai Sushanth Samudrala. Dr. Sushanth, CEO of Sushanth IT Law Associates, a niche cyber law consulting firm working around the intersection of law and technology, is a cyber law expert and a techno-legal consultant. He is an avid speaker and has addressed over 1,200 events in the last decade. He is an academician and a regular columnist for various newspapers, including the Daily Guardian. He has written 7 ebooks on multiple facets of technology and law. He is a visiting faculty for cyber law at premier institutions like BITS Pilani Hyderabad, NUALS Kochi, Reva University Bangalore, CDAC Bangalore, RSU Gujarat, and St. Joseph's College Bangalore. He has recently been conferred with an honorary doctorate in the specialized area of cyber law by the Pani University, Haiti, for his contributions to the. It is my absolute pleasure to welcome you, Dr. Sushanth.
Thank you so much. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, Dr. Sushanth, you are.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I once again thank the organizers, especially Dr. Sriram sir and Harshit and his team for giving me this wonderful opportunity to come before you and talk about a very interesting area of 22 years of Indian cyber law, corporate and netizen view. So I hope that we have a very insightful discussion today, and it's more than a pleasure to address once again all of you on this wonderful occasion of the 22nd year of the Indian cyber law. So without much waste of time, I just want to directly get into my presentation. So I request Harshit and his team to help me to move my presentation, please.
So Sushanth, I think we are able to see your screen.
Yeah.
Do you want my team to do it, or you can just do it? We can see your screen. Can you just go full screen? Yeah, it's clear.
One second.
It was me who
could you? No, I don't think my
Divya,
screen is visible.
Okay, so yeah, so Divya, you can just tell Divya to switch the slide when you're done with that slide, Sushanth.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can we open? Go ahead. Yeah. So usually this is the response that I get when I'm taking a session, especially to a non-legal audience. So I really hope that, since I'm not able to see your videos, so most of your expressions will be this way, but I really hope that I change that expression as we go forward. So can we go to the next slide, please? Okay. Yeah. So I call all of us are as digital slaves. The reason I'm trying to make this statement is when you look at a typical master-servant relationship or a master-slave relationship, what usually happens is it's the slave who works very hard, and end of the day, it is the master who gets the benefit out of all of these hard work of the slave. So in that context, all of us who are using social media applications are generating a lot of content left, right, and center on the internet. But unfortunately or fortunately, what's happening is that this content is, being generated by us, and the benefit is ultimately derived by these companies who are actually trying to get their valuation increased because of the number of users and the user content. So in that context, I call all of us as digital slaves. Can we move to the next slide? Yeah, this is a very popular game during our school days called Guess Who, where we used to try to identify the characters. Both the teams or both the individuals will be having 2 sets of cards, and as you're able to see on the screen, and one card will be put over there, and the other party has to guess the person by understanding and by looking at his attributes. For example, if you're able to see on the screen, there are so many characters. You have to guess the character by their attributes, like specs, the hair color, whether they have mustache or not, and what is the color of their hair, and what is whether they have spectacles or not, and all these were the characteristics being used. So I really think that this is a big message in terms of understanding how information about us is made available in fragments on the internet. And anybody just surfing the internet today is able to identify you and me looking at our attributes that we are leaving all over the internet. So I believe this is a huge learning to all of us, more so in the context of protecting privacy. Yes, can we go to the next slide? Right to privacy is now our fundamental right. So thanks to the Supreme Court judgment that we have had, I think the image on the screen is a very classical description of how privacy is in terms of family members. Today, each and every individual has got right to privacy, and I think these are just huge parameters, because privacy is no longer something to do only with a privacy law related matter, but now in case somebody violates your and my privacy, we have got the right to go ahead and approach the High Court or the Supreme Court under Article 226 or Article 32 of the Indian Constitution, where we can directly file a writ petition in the High Court or the Supreme Court in case of violation of privacy. So I think that's a huge message that we have today. And it's very important that we understand that privacy is now the fundamental right of you and me. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? I think, when you look at the laws passed by independent India, that is post-independence, and if I were to talk about 5 significant laws passed by the country after independence, I would say the Indian cyber law is also one among them. The reason being that it is the only law which is relating to anything and everything that is digital in nature. So I call this as a Mother India legislation as far as digital aspect is concerned. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. The fundamental question that everybody has, what is cyber law? Because the moment anybody talks about cyber law, the first thing that I'm looking at as a cyber law practitioner is they look at cyber crimes. But unfortunately, cyber crimes is not something that is only the element of cyber law. So let us understand what cyber law is, and then that will help us to have a better understanding on the applicability as well. Well, if you're using computers, computer systems, computer resources, computer networks, communication devices, as also data or information in the electronic format, lo and behold, because there is now cyber law that is going to be made applicable to you. So if you're using any of these 7 parameters, it is high time that you be aware of the cyber law. So that's the whole reason why the organizers have been demonstrating their thought leadership in recognizing the importance of the cyber law. And then I'm really grateful to the organizers for giving me this wonderful opportunity, especially on this magnanimous occasion of 22nd year of the Indian cyber law. Can we go to the next slide, please? Now, in India, we have a cyber law by way of Information Technology Act 2000. So it was introduced in the year 2000, which is just 22 years ago. And in addition to that, we made an amendment in the year 2008. And after that, we supplemented the Information Technology Act with some rules and regulations, of which I think as a corporate, as a netizen, we need to be aware that we have IT rules 2011 and IT rules 2021, as also the new IT directives 2022, which we'll just be discussing as we go forward. So cyber law in India is majorly of Information Technology Act and the rules and regulations made thereunder. Can we go to the next slide, please? The main philosophy of the Information Technology Act. Why did Information Technology Act come into picture? We already have the existing laws. So why should a new law come into picture? Well, one of the main reasons that the Indian cyber law had come into picture, especially during 2000 period, was India was signatory to United Nations Model Law of Commerce. So therefore, once India was signatory to this UNCITRAL, it was a requisite that they introduce a national cyber law based on UNCITRAL's Model Law of Commerce. So it was due to that reason that the Indian cyber law was introduced in the year 2000. And primarily, it is not a penal statute. What do I mean by penal statute? It is not a punishment law. So the reason I'm trying to make that statement is, if you open the Information Technology Act, you can never find the term cybercrime anywhere in the Act. What's the reason? The broad reason is it's not here to only punish cyber crimes. So let us understand why, and what is the objective of the Information Technology Act. Yes, can we move to the next slide, please? The fundamental objective of the Information Technology Act is to provide legal recognition to all electronic transactions, and also to provide a boost to e-governance and promote e-commerce. So the fundamental objective of the Information Technology Act is to provide, some kind of a facility for electronic filing of documents, especially with the government agencies. Also to give legal recognition to electronic communication that we are all doing today. And had it not been for the Information Technology Act, I think whatever we are doing today, whether it's online business, whether it's online banking, or whether it's online filing, or whether it's anything to do with the online domain, wouldn't have been legally possible, because we had no law which is giving legal recognition and validity to these transactions. Can we go to the next slide, please? One of the fundamental principles. So I would just like to talk to you about 4 important principles of the Information Technology Act. And as a corporate professional, as well as a user of the internet, or as a user of this mobile phone, or as a user of a tablet, I would just like you to understand 4 aspects about the Information Technology Act, of which there is a very important terminology that we call as electronic record. So whatever information or data that we create using a digital or an electronic device becomes an electronic record. Whether it's a Facebook message, whether it's a WhatsApp conversation, whether it's audio, video, or whether it's any image. Whatever you create using a digital or an electronic device becomes an electronic record. You will say, what happens if it's an electronic record? Once it's an electronic record, it gets legally recognized under the Information Technology Act, specifically under Section 4 of the Information Technology Act. So what does that got to do? That is simple in saying that whatever we're doing today becomes an electronic record, and in positive sense, it can be used for legal recognition, and on the other side, it can also be legal evidence, and that could be used against you and me. So be very careful on this parameter, because whatever you post on the internet would become an electronic record using any device, whether it's mobile phones or computers or computer systems or computer networks, or any information or data in the electronic format becomes an electronic record. Whether it's a Word document, whether it's a PDF document, or whether it's a PowerPoint presentation, everything becomes an electronic record. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? So whatever transactions you're doing today digitally using your mobile phone or using electronic wallets like your Paytm, your Google Pay, and whatever Phone Pay, whatever you're doing today is now given legal recognition and validity because of the Information Technology Act. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Video conferencing. Whatever you're doing today in terms of video conferencing, whether it's doing online meetings, or having online classes, or having online webinars this way, everything is now an electronic record. And once it's an electronic record, it becomes legally recognized under the Information Technology Act. So I would say, please understand the wideness of which Information Technology Act has come up with, especially in context of electronic records. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Facial recognition today is already begun. We've started seeing companies, as also airports, trying to make use of facial recognition for identification purposes. So I believe that there's a lot of things that we have to understand from a legal perspective. Number one, this is your electronic signature and can be used to authenticate these electronic records. So we will discuss about electronic and digital signatures as we go forward. But just to tell you that legally, even facial recognition is an electronic record, and it is given legal recognition and validity under the IT Act. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, I thought to just share with you this very, very interesting case of an artificial intelligence based element. So, artificial intelligence is something that has already begun, and you and I are in the era of artificial intelligence. And primarily, artificial intelligence, whatever you do on using an artificial intelligence related algorithm, whether you execute a program, whether you use a chatbot on your website or a mobile application or on your software, everything becomes information or data in the electronic format, and again it becomes an electronic record. So this very interesting case wherein one of the Western countries, an AI based astronaut companion was developed. So artificial intelligence primarily, for those of you who are laymen, please understand that artificial intelligence primarily relies on data and data sets. So the more and more data that you feed in, the more and more accurate the system becomes altogether. And therefore, in this context, one of the space stations had actually developed an AI astronaut companion, and it was used for enabling the astronaut when he was going abroad, when he was going into the space, to help him to act as a companion. So in this context, they came up with a companion wherein they were trying to actually go ahead and try to place whatever information he wants. It was interacting, and based on the interactions, it was giving the response to the astronaut. In one such context, the astronaut was wanting to do something else. So he asked the system to shut down quietly. And at that point, the system revolted, saying that, how can you be so rude to me? So these are classical examples to understand how artificial intelligence could not only create technical issues, but also bring in huge amounts of legal, policy, regulatory aspects. So this is one such instance, to just give you an instance of how AI systems could behave in case they're turning to be rogue. Internet of Things has already become our daily companion. I don't see anybody without a smart television in their house. So the moment we're using IoT devices, we will have to be clearly aware of the fact that any misuse or any activities that are impacting your privacy or impacting you as an individual or as an organization, now you have the Information Technology Act that will help you to address these issues. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Wearable devices have already become part and parcel of our lives. Today, we're using wearable devices like smartwatches, where we're trying to use it for n number of activities, including personal, professional, social kinds of activities. And more specifically and significantly, we are using it for storing our vital information, which is our heart rate and other health parameters. What I would like to tell you is, please be aware, especially from a corporate perspective, if your corporate account is linked and you're accessing that said information in your smartphone, because that could bring in huge amount of legal risks, especially from the data protection point of view. And not only that, please be aware that we do not know, as users of the smart devices, where and how your data is stored and how is it exchanged and to whom all is it available, and things like that, because we, in any sense, do not read the policies and terms and conditions, and we simply agree to the same. In this kind of a scenario, it becomes very important, especially from a corporate perspective, to be alive to the fact that this can bring in huge amount of legal risks upon you. So if you're a corporate executive who is using a smartwatch for the purpose of your professional activities, think again. Can we go to the next slide, please? Today, I do not think any of us are there who is not using cloud. So whether it's any kinds of data that we store in, because data becomes the new asset today, we're storing it onto the cloud. Good, bad, or worst, we already are part of the cloud computing revolution. So whether it's your mobile phone, any data that you store on your mobile phone gets synced to the cloud. Any data that you store on your email is also available on the cloud. And be aware that whatever transactions that you're doing, again, on the cloud, are amenable to the Indian cyber law. So therefore, that's the broadness with which the IT Act has come into picture. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Auctions. So a lot of e-auction portals are already available. We've seen eBay and a couple of other auction providers. So whatever e-auctions, especially if you're in the government, if you're trying to look at the auctioning by the different public sectors, then all this is now given legal recognition because of the Information Technology Act. Had it not been providing legal recognition to electronic transactions, I think today, majority of the auctions, tendering, everything would have been at stake because there's no backed up legislation per se. Yes. Can we go to the next slide? 5G has already arrived, my dear participants, and we already started to see SIM card related frauds which are taking place, especially on 5G. A lot of people, especially the cyber criminals, are becoming more and more cognizant, and they're trying to lure you that should you want to activate 5G on your mobile phone, they're asking you to share out an OTP. So I believe that they're trying to devise new strategies, and they're always trying to stay ahead of the times, luring all the innocent victims, and they're trying to encash wherever and however possible. So I believe that please don't get yourself into this 5G related frauds. Think again. Should you wish to go ahead and then use 5G, please contact your network service provider and get the correct and relevant information regarding the same. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Today, cyber crimes are not leaving any sector, and it has become a part and parcel of our life today. Tata Power recently was hit with a cyber attack, but I'm a salute Tata Power because they were one of the first organizations who came up with a letter addressing that they were hit with a cyber breach, even to the Bombay Stock Exchange. So I think this is a commendable job, and I would really salute them for their notification, especially to the stock exchange, informing them that they were hit with a cyber attack. I think that has to be, the thought leadership that any organization should look at. Yes. Can we go to the next slide, please? This case of Uber has now shaken the entire world. Now, till now, we thought if we had a data breach in our organization, we can just get away with that. But Uber's case has once again woken all of us from our deep slumber and has given us central and broad message that if you're a chief information security officer, or if you're a CISO, or if you're handling the security of your company or your organization, think and be aware, because this is one case that has now become a game-changing element and can be used even in India. So we'll look at this as we discuss forward, so that it becomes more relevant when we discuss about how these roles and responsibilities are when it comes to the new directives. Can we go to the next slide, please? This study of one organization called ISACA has told that 40% of Indian consumers suffer data breach online. Yes. So that's how you and I could get exposed to in the online domain. Yes. Can we go to the next slide, please? Even nuclear power plant also was under cyber attack. So it's no longer the phenomena that cyber crimes are something to do with only IT companies or something to do with SaaS companies, but I think it's now being a playground for all kinds of actors and all kinds of business verticals. Can we go to the next slide, please? The Indian police have arrested a crypto fraudster accused of $31 million scam. So for those of us who are trying to be looking at short-term investments, especially in crypto, please be alive to the fact that anything which is promising high returns is something that you really have to be cautious of, because don't get yourself into this kind of scenarios of getting duped by cyber crooks or by cyber criminals. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? The Hyderabad man lost 3 lakh rupees for the KBC, Kaun Banega Crorepati fraud. So I think these are instances to just showcase that cyber criminals are now trying to target different individuals in different manners altogether. And like I said, one of the ways to look at staying away from cybercrime is to be aware. So I think that awareness is something that you and I have to do as a netizen. Yes. Next slide, please. I think this is a very broad message that look, countries are trying to open up their doors and trying to come up with the different legislations relating to cryptocurrencies, and given the fact that they have huge potential. Yes. Next slide, please. The IT ministry has now gone ahead and come up with a draft mobile security, and anonymization of data guidelines. And should you be wanting to comment or put your viewpoints, I think it's already available on the site of METI. So that's something that we are all begun. So I believe that the Indian cyber law has now set in some direction, and then we are trying to move in that direction. So I think it's the law on the eye as far as anything digital is concerned. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Now, airlines have also been targeted by cyber criminals, and huge amount of data breaches, especially exposing the personal and sensitive data of travelers, has now become entirely different altogether. It was earlier in the Western countries, but now it's also being largely even in India as well. Next slide, please. So over 2,000 cyber attacks every 24 hours on all Indian oil companies, especially if you'd seen the Oil India breach, where even oil and ONGC, oil and natural gas companies also are not spared by the cyber criminals anymore. Next slide, please. The Enforcement Directorate in Hyderabad has raided a cryptocurrency exchange. So now with cryptocurrency exchanges getting popular for the cryptocurrency related transactions, I think a lot of activities are now happening left, right, and center over the internet, especially when it comes to cryptocurrency. Yes, next. The Telangana government has once again demonstrated thought leadership in coming up with a telemental health toll-free number. Now, today, telemedicine has now become the ground reality because of COVID-19. And one of the reasons that telemedicine and, whether it's telemental health is now being legally possible because of the Information Technology Act. So the Information Technology Act, once again, has paved way for numerous legislations this way. We had the government come up with the telemedicine guidelines 2020 during the COVID-19 period, as also telemental health guidelines, as also telemedicine for Ayurvedic and homeopathic practitioners. I think these are now these are getting more and more supplemented by different legislations, and the base remains that this is the Information Technology Act and the rules and regulations which are primary to the launch of these regulations. Yes, next slide, please. I think the metaverse is something that has already begun, and the Telangana government has now demonstrated its thought leadership in coming up with a space tech policy launch in metaverse. I think metaverse is now paving a lot of way for different kinds of activities, whether it's gaming, whether it's commerce, or whether it's any other kind of even events are now connected on the metaverse. I think it's a very interesting space. And for those of you who do not have an understanding what is metaverse, just imagine that today we are all virtually connected thanks to the organizers. But it's not you and I connected just electronically, but we are connected with our digital avatars. Just imagine that everybody is connected here with a digital avatar, and it's the digital avatars who are trying to do any kinds of activities in this sessions. That's a classical case. It's no longer the Matrix movie or any Hollywood movie. Now this has become the ground reality. People are coming up with digital avatars and digital activities, digital items, and digital robberies and thefts are now close to the times in the metaverse. Yes. Next, let's go to the next slide. And already metaverse crime has already been reported. And first metaverse crime where one metaverse avatar was put to virtual rape by another avatar. So all that happens is, how do you address such kinds of metaverse digital frauds? Ultimately, broadly speaking, all these metaverse related crimes are also now nothing but information or electronic data in the electronic format, and therefore they are recognized as electronic records under the IT Act. So any issue that is taking place broadly on the metaverse is now covered under the ambit of the Information Technology Act and the rules and regulations made thereunder. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Metaverse land has now become the ground reality. We've seen this famous singer called Dela Mehendi who has come up with Balle Balle land, as you're able to see. It's a virtual land. And how do you actually get ownership on this? We have something known as NFTs. So I think we'll also discuss about NFTs, but just to tell you that a virtual land. You can own a land on the metaverse, and the property document is nothing but just like how you have the physical agreement now given when you buy a property. I think all that is now possible with the issue of NFT, non-fungible token. So let's understand about that as well. Since I come from the legal front, I just thought I just talk to you even from a legal front about NFTs. So just imagine that if you're a fan of a cricket or a sport or for that matter any film. So let me just give you an example. So anything that we have, for example, if you're a cricket fan, just imagine that Virat Kohli hits a six, and that six brings India to lift the T20 World Cup, which is likely to happen in the next few days. You are a sporting enthusiast. You would like to get an NFT created. You can do that. So NFT, the word itself says non-fungible. That means it's one and only, and it's not something that you can replace. Classical example that I can give you is if you have a first show ticket being purchased by you. Let's say that you have a movie that you want to watch. You're a fan of one particular series, and you buy the first day ticket for that movie. So that ticket is only one. It is not, you might watch that movie n number of times, but that first day ticket is only one. So that's a classical example of an NFT. And what are we doing here? We are representing that particular asset that we have, that moment that we have, and we are giving that value to a token. Just like the currency notes that you and I have. Currency notes are ultimately paper. But what are you and I doing, or how are we able to spend money? It's only a piece of paper, but we are giving value to that paper, whether it's 2,000 rupee note or 100 rupee note or a 500 rupee note. And that value is represented in that particular currency note. So that's the classical example of NFT. The token is representing that particular asset, virtual asset, which is nothing but your moment or something that you already have in unique. And that's the way. And all these NFTs are ultimately data or information in the electronic format, and they're electronic records, and they're recognized under Indian cyber law specifically as electronic records. Yes. Can we go to the next slide, please? DAOs are now become the new metaverse normal, rather, shall I say the normal normals. So what do you mean by DAO? Decentralized autonomous organizations. So just imagine that, you have something relating to, a DAO, which is nothing but a decentralized autonomous organization. It is made available to you with a shared bank account. Let's say something like a mutual fund, but which has a bank account, shared bank account. And these are only available on blockchain. So if you're looking at a blockchain transaction, we'll talk about blockchains as well. So I think in that context, DAOs will be of more use. Let's look at blockchain and then come back to DAOs. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Web 3.0 is now already begun. Just imagine if you and I are using the normal internet today, and if we were to tailor make the internet according to our own choices. So let me give you a classical example to understand what is the current net that we're using versus Web 3.0. So I'm sure everybody knows that we have libraries of songs. For example, let's take Ghana.com. Ghana.com is a website, is an application which has thousands of audio songs. And that is the net that you and I are browsing. But what do you and I do? Once we open the app, we create our own playlist. That means our favorite songs. So those songs that we create, which are according to our taste and like, are something that we call as playlist, right? I'm sure you all understand that. So the playlist is a classical example of the Web 3.0. That means the user generated content specifically according to their likes and dislikes. Just imagine that you are browsing the internet, and that internet is something only based on your likes and your taste. So that's the classical way to understand Web 3.0. I think a lot of work has already begun in this domain. Can we go to the next slide, please? Cyber insurance has now become the new mantra, given the fact that data is now the primary asset for everybody. So a lot of companies are now going ahead and taking cyber insurance for protecting their data, as also their organization from any kinds of data breaches. Next slide, please. Cyber security. Now, all along, we thought that cyber security is something which is purely technical in nature. What has it got to do with law? I think that's a clear case of misconception. The Information Technology Act has, by way of the amendment, come up with a definition of cybersecurity. Now, what's cybersecurity under the law? It talks about the physical security of the device as well as the security to the information or data residing in that device. So it's a combination of physical security as well as the information security. So both these are covered under the definition of cybersecurity under the IT Act. So it's not only just merely data security, or it's not merely the physical security of the device. Now, all of us are, yeah, please go to the next slide. Now, all of us are trying to make use of, contracts, in the electronic format. So you and I are signing contracts in the electronic format. I think the screen is not visible. Could you just look at it? Yeah, thank you. So the classical way that you and I, see, we just discussed about electronic records. So just imagine that if I were to authenticate an electronic document, how can I do that? So digitally, just like how, physically, if you want to authenticate any document, you attach signatures. Just imagine that the same thing were to be done in the electronic format. So how will you authenticate an electronic record or information or data in the electronic format? Now the law gives you two options of either using digital or electronic signatures. So digital signatures and electronic signatures are entirely different from each other. Electronic signatures are biometrics, Aadhaar-based OTPs, and facial recognition, and which are unique to an individual. So retina scanning, these are all electronic signatures. Whereas digital signatures are something that you have to purchase from an authority, and they give you that in a piece of pen drive. So don't be mistaken that scanned copy of a physical signature is a digital signature. 9 out of 10 individuals or companies are under the presumption. So please do not, attach scanned copies of physical signature in your documents. That is something which is absolutely not given legal recognition and validity. And rather, don't call that as a digital signature. Digital signature has only a computation of digits. It does not have anything that you have with respect to signature. And once you get a digital signature, you're given a certificate, which is called digital signature certificate. So please be aware of that. So the moment, just like how you are signing physically on paper, you have to use electronic or digital signatures to authenticate any electronic record. So should you want to authenticate an email, yes, you can go ahead and digitally sign it. A lot of email service providers give you the option to authenticate it by attaching your digital signatures thereafter. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Sure, this is what I was just trying to tell you. See, digital signatures look that way. They give you the date and time as well. So you can go ahead and purchase your digital signature from certifying authorities. There are some certifying authorities like TCS and eMudra and things like that. So you can go ahead and purchase it from those respective certifying authorities. They have the power to issue digital signatures. Along with the digital signature, they give you a digital signature certificate. Yes, next slide, please. Now, the IT Act, once again, has now made a small amendment. And by way of the circular dated 26th September, now you can register your property using digital signatures or electronic signature, execute power of attorneys, execute all property transaction documents. Prior to this, this was not legally recognized. So please be aware that now registration of property and execution of power of attorneys, checks, and any property transaction documents can also be made using digital and electronic signatures. Yes, next. Yeah. Now, the second important concept that I want you to understand is who's an intermediary. So fundamentally, the law, when it was amended in the year 2008, has come up with a new term known as an intermediary. So who's an intermediary? In simple terms, any person or either directly or on behalf of somebody or any entity on its behalf or on behalf of any other entity, if it stores, receives or transmits any electronic record. That means if you are basically collecting any information in electronic format or providing services with respect to that electronic format, data in the electronic format, you become an intermediary. So classical example is a website is an intermediary because it is displaying information. What is the information? It is providing information about what kind of services are offered by that company. Even a small company's website is also an intermediary. A mobile application is an intermediary. A person who's rendering professional services like a lawyer, doctor, chartered accountant, they also are intermediaries. So please understand that if you're an intermediary, you are now required to exercise due diligence and have in place reasonable security practices and procedures under the law. Yes, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah. So earlier people thought intermediaries means only telecom service providers or network service providers, but that's no longer the scenario. Everybody who's collecting, anybody and everybody who's collecting information in electronic format or providing services with respect to that electronic information becomes an intermediary. Yes, next. So this is where I said companies, associations, trusts, professionals, anybody who's collecting information or data in the electronic format or providing services either directly or on behalf of any other entity becomes an intermediary. Yes, next. If you're an intermediary, you would now be required to preserve and retain data for a period of 180 days. So that's the present situation. And if you don't do that, you can now face legal consequences because you violate Section 67C of the Information Technology Act. So please be aware that if you're an intermediary, data retention for a period of 180 days would now be mandatory, especially under the new guidelines of 2021. Yes, next slide, please. And not only that, should you disclose, being an intermediary, should you disclose any personal information? We'll understand what is personal information also. Should you disclose any information without the consent of the person? Now it's now a criminal offense, and you could now face imprisonment of up to 3 years or fine up to 5 lakh rupees. So be very careful, especially on what you collect on your website, on your mobile applications, especially on your softwares. Should you not have proper policies? Should you violate and share, sell the marketing, sell the personal information of your customers to any marketing agencies? Then that's in for legal trouble. Yes, next. There could be 2 kinds of exposures that you as an intermediary will have in case you don't exercise your due diligence and have in place reasonable security practices and procedures. Number 1 is civil exposure. Number 2 is criminal exposure. Civil is damages by way of compensation up to 5 crore rupees. So we'll discuss about the contraventions as well, but 5 crores per contravention. And criminal liability could range from 3 years to life imprisonment. Apart from that, fine ranging from 1 lakh rupees to 10 lakh rupees. Yes, next. Who's going to be liable? It's not just the company, but the top management, the middle management, each and every stakeholder would be responsible in case you have negligence in implementing due diligence or reasonable security practices and procedures, or you are aware of the said breach or the contravention. Yes, next. Ransomware is something that has become the new jewel of the crown. So almost every company is now being targeted by a ransomware attack. So just imagine that you get a message on your device or you're on your mobile phone that, hey, we got the content or control of your device. Should you wish to get back the control, pay us so-and-so amount as ransom, specifically in a cryptocurrency called Bitcoins. That's the classical example of ransomware. That could happen to any individual who's either a normal user or a corporate executive. So don't be under the misconception that I'm an individual who's going to bother me. So please be alive to that fact. Do not immediately respond to that. Please report about the same. We have a reporting portal called cybercrime.gov.in where you could do reporting of these cyber incidences and breaches. Yes, next. Now the new IT directives are now introduced. We have an organization called CERTIN, Computer Emergency Response Team, which has now come up with some guidelines for all intermediaries, service providers, professionals, governmental organizations, proprietors, as well as associations and trusts. So what are these guidelines? Let us just look at them in a nutshell. Next. You are mandated to store and retain your logs for a period of 180 days. And these logs relate to your ICT systems. We don't have a definition for what is ICT, but as I can see, relating to your website, your mobile application, your devices, I think all these broadly can be brought under the radar of ICT systems. And not only that, the guidelines have now come up with certain cybersecurity breaches. Should this breach take place in your organization, you are mandated now to report within the period of 6 hours upon you being aware of such a breach. So let's say that the breach has taken place in January 2022, but you got to know about it only today, October 17, 2022. Your 6 days will begin today. But unfortunately, you are now required to demonstrate with legally admissible electronic evidence to showcase that you were not aware of the breach from January till date. So that's your responsibility to do that. You cannot just get away by saying that I never knew that the breach has taken place. So the law is going to say that, okay, should you not be aware, demonstrate that how you were not aware of the same. And all your logs have to be stored within the territorial boundaries of India. And should you want to report, yes, you can report these said breaches by email, fax, and phone. And not only that, as an intermediary, as a service provider, as an association, trust, or as a professional, as anybody, you are now required to appoint and designate a point of contact and send these details to certain through email. Yes, next. So these are the different kinds of breaches. In the paucity of time, I'm not going through all of them, but just would like to tell you that look at these broad things that these guidelines have brought in. Unauthorized access to IT systems and data. This can include a simple, a copy of data by the employee into a pen drive. Then a malicious code, virus, worms, Trojan. If a simple virus is affecting your computer system, your communication device in your organization, you're now required to report. Next. See, look at these: data breach and data leak. I think there are very broad terms, and the law has already been very clear in even the futuristic activities, which include 3D, 4D printing, and machine learning and AI and drones and additive manufacturing, and also something to do with blockchain and as well as big data. So it's a completely different ball game altogether. Yes, next. So in India, we have this Chelta Hai Maha approach. So you will say, what if I don't report? What are my consequences? There are these consequences if you don't report. You can get exposed to civil liability under Section 43, up to 5 crore rupees, criminal liability, which we just discussed under Section 85 for the top management, middle management, and every stakeholder. This is exactly what happened in the Uber's case. In Uber's case, in 2016, a data breach had taken place, and the information security officer tried to cover up, and he did not notify the users, because the notification is mandated under the law there in that particular country. And because of that, he's today no longer in Uber. But 6 years down the line, he was arrested in his capacity as a CISO to cover up the data breach. In India, when you look at the judgments of the High Court and the Supreme Court, it's 7 years timeline. So should a data breach take place today in your organization, you don't report it, 7 years down the line is the kind of respective period that it could be exposed to. So anybody who's bringing it to the notice of certain, which is the nodal agency, as I just told you about cybersecurity, within 7 years, you could be in for legal trouble. And you are now required to maintain a log retention and showcase that you have exercised your compliance with the said regulation. Not only that, there's an exposure under Companies Act as well, especially under Section 134(3)(n) and Section 402, Section 70(b)(7), which is 1 year imprisonment or 1 lakh rupees fine. And should you have your ISO certification in place, you cannot renew that if you are not complied to the certain guidelines. Anything to do beyond that, if you have a cybersecurity breach, you have not reported, and your ISO comes for renewal, then not only you, but your audit firm who's actually certifying that it will be extended and going ahead and doing any activities in this regard would also be penalized for non-compliance. Yes, next. Not only that, should you be an ISO 27001 entity, then your ISMS audit control A 18.1.1 is also going to put in some legal responsibilities on you. Your annual financial audit would also expose you, because if there is a risk, however remote is it, has to be brought to the notice. Non-reporting also brings in some civil and criminal liabilities, as I told you, under the IT rules, as also under these new guidelines. And if you try to report only 50% of the breach, and not report the complete breach, then what is it that you're doing? Then you are actually tampering with the logs and manipulating the logs. Then you could face legal liabilities under the IPC as well as criminal liability under the IT Act. So these are the different exposures that you and your organization could face in case you do not report these breaches. Yes, next. Not only that, the loss of reputation, trust, which is beyond calculations, but you as an entity would be ending up losing your reputation and brand name, which is very, very critical in any business today. Yes, next. In case of non-reporting, see, the only challenge is, look at this image. You're walking on a line of fire, and I would say that should you want to walk in fire, you must be prepared of the consequences. So it's always advisable that you wear a fire suit to get yourself protected. So if you don't report today, within the next 7 years, I think daily is going to be something that you're walking on a fire, because we do not know if any employees, any competitors, any partners, any vendors would report being aware about this. Should any of them bring it to the notice within 7 years, then you're in for legal consequences, as what we just discussed. Yes, next. So in the paucity of time, I think I won't go much into these guidelines, but just give you an understanding that there are new guidelines by way of IT Rules 2021, which have bring in some kind of due diligence parameters, especially under rule number 3 of the IT Rules 2021 for any intermediary. Yes, next. And one of the things, how do you demonstrate documented due diligence and reasonable security practices under the IT Act? I would suggest that you should have in place the privacy policy, terms and conditions, user agreement, and also if you have a data protection agreement, okay, that's fine. Otherwise, I would say please sign it with all the parties with whom you're exchanging sensitive and personal information or data. We'll just be looking at that as well. And now it is required that you actually intimate them at least once a year in case there is any change. Yes. Next. So you are not required now. You are now required not to display, host, upload any of these things. Slides will be shared with you, so you can go through these as we go forward. Yes, please. Next. Yeah, next, please. Should you receive any court order which is specifically relating to any of these, what you're seeing, you're now required to submit and give them the relevant information within 72 hours on you getting that order. So if the moment you get a court order, the first thing that you'll have to do is acknowledge it. And what is the timeline for acknowledging it? 24 hours. So if the court order specifically talks about these aspects that you're seeing on the screen, and furnishing of information within 72 hours also becomes mandated. If you do not do that, you would now be facing legal consequences. Next. And any information hosted, stored, or published on your particular application or website or software, you have the opportunity now to actually remove and disable access within 36 hours from the time you actually receive a court order or a government order. Not only that, from the time anybody gives you a complaint, so which we call as a grievance. So should anybody complain and raise a grievance with respect to any data, any content on your website, on your mobile app, on your software or a platform, within 36 hours on you receiving that, you must first remove and disable access, failing which you are again violating these rules and regulations. Yes, next. Yeah, you can do that either on a voluntary basis, when you're on, that is on suo motu basis, or on receiving any grievance. But if you're removing any third-party content, let's say that you are running something like a third-party data-related application where data is posted by third parties, you must inform them that you're deleting such and such an information, or you're removing that information, and you must also inform the respective party. So it can be done either on your own, on a suo motu basis, or upon a grievance received by somebody. Yes, next. Yeah. So if you get a court order specifically asking you to provide any information that is relating to identification of a person, or for assistance in any kind of investigation or a cybersecurity incident or prosecution of offenses, you must give that information so asked within the period of 72 hours. And remember two things: that order should be in writing, and the purpose for which that information is sought has to be mentioned. So I know it's a very, very huge thing. The presentation will be shared with you. I think you can look into that. But just to give you an understanding, please be aware that it should be writing and the purpose and as well as the timeline. Yes, next. You have to now look at a different paradigm altogether. You can protect your data and information by having the best possible technology measures, but the rules clearly specify that your technology or the security should not be in such a way that it may affect the normal functioning of a computer or a computer resource. So computer resource may include a website, mobile app, a software, or a platform. Yes, next. As an intermediary, now you have more responsibilities on your shoulder. You're not supposed to have in place a grievance officer, and the name and the contact details of the grievance officer would have to be published. And any report, any grievance that has been raised would have to be acknowledged within 24 hours by the grievance officer. And you got 15 days to settle and close that respective grievance. So should there be any kind of communication happening with respect to grievances, will they have to be done by a grievance officer, whether it's with the government or whether it's the enforcement agencies or whether it's your customers. So please be aware that you should now appoint a grievance officer, and his name and details should be made public on your website or on your mobile application, on your software or on your platform. Yes, next. If you have any of these, if you receive complaints relating to any of these specific grievances, the maximum time limit is 24 hours for you to remove it. Let's say anything that are specific to whatever you're seeing over there. So privacy, impersonation, and morphing and things like that. Yes, next. So this is what I was just talking to you about, that 180 days is now the required timeline to store and retain data. Yes, next. So what happens if you don't follow these rules? Nothing happens. You lose the statutory Suraksha Kavach given to you under Section 79. So one of the things I want to tell you is, if you're an intermediary and if you have in place all the reasonable security that I just told you, and also have in place your due diligence, then the law now gives you a Suraksha Kavach under Section 79, which is meaning that no liability whatsoever can be cast on you under for any kind of activity. So you have a beautiful option, just like the statutory exception given to you. So if you are in compliance, you get the Suraksha Kavach. So if you don't follow these rules, the Suraksha Kavach fades off, and you will be responsible for any third-party data that is hosted or that is uploaded on your respective website, on your mobile application, your platform, or your software. Yes, next. So the law has come up with something known as sensitive personal data, as also personal information. So please understand that as an individual, you have sensitive personal information. What is your sensitive personal information? Passwords, financial information, biometric information, sexual orientation, information relating to gender, health and medical records and conditions. So these are all sensitive personal data or information given under law. So everything that relates to you is your sensitive personal information. Yes, next. However, there is an exception. Any information disclosed under RTI, Right to Information Act, or any information or data made available in the public domain is not sensitive or personal information. This is a very, very important point, participants. Any data made available in the public public domain. Yes, next. So personal information is any information with which you can identify a person, maybe name, email ID, Aadhaar number, driving license number, PAN card, anything. So basically, even an IP address, or even your even if it's your office ID or college ID, whatever be it, is your personal information. Yes, next. Yeah, so I don't have time to go ahead and look at this, but yes, please understand that there is a lot of sensitive and personal information that we leave around in the internet. But don't forget that the moment you're giving up sensitive and personal information, that you are exposing your data in the hands of those people whom you do not have much control of. Yes, next. So the law has come up with something known as what's a computer. So this is a third important point that I wanted to share with you. So what do you mean by computer under the IT Act? Any device which has three elements. What are the three elements? arithmetic and logical unit, memory, and the capacity to follow and execute your instructions. So memory, arithmetic and logical unit, capacity to follow and execute your instructions. If any device has these three elements, it is a computer under the IT Act. So even a mobile phone is a computer, a tablet is a computer, even an automatic washing machine is also a computer, ATM machine is a computer. So wherever you have computer, this is the way that you have to understand, not the way how we understand of what's a computer. It's not only the desktops or laptops, but it's also anything and everything which has these three elements. Yes, next. We also have now something known as communication devices which were added. So any device which has four things: the capacity to store, transmit, receive, send. Store, transmit, receive, send. Audio, video, image, text. So anything that has to do with these things gets now covered under communication device. iPad, which is not having a calling facility, is also a communication device. Yes, next. Balkanization of internet is something that countries are having country-specific internet. So just imagine that now internet means it's a network of networks. So sitting here, we are doing transactions somewhere across the world. But just imagine if countries have country-specific internet. In each country, there is one specific internet. So that means you can't go global. This is something known as balkanization, which has already started. Yes. So blockchain is something that's already now become very, very, very common. And a lot of state and non-state actors are using blockchains for a variety of purposes. Just imagine that this is a blockchain. All of us are connected. We are all blocks. And as you're able to see the screen, but nobody is able to tamper or alter the content. Why? Because unless and until you have the control, you will not be able to do that. So just like that, imagine that this is information or data on the blockchain. It is transparent to all the people, but at the same time, it is not editable or it is not manipulated. It is not having any capacity to get manipulated. This is the classical example of understanding blockchain. And how are we all connected? Because of the meeting link. Only people having access to this meeting link can join this particular session. So just imagine that is the security. That's something we call as cryptography, where we have keys, public and private keys. So I'm not getting much into that, but just to tell you that blockchain is something which is transparent and immutable. That means no possibility to amend or change. And Andhra Pradesh government has already started using it for storing land records. Artificial intelligence, like I told you, is used by everybody, including the search engines, and we are all using different kinds of artificial intelligence related applications. Like if you're using something like Google, you're already using it, and you have these recommendations. All these come up because of data and or information in the electronic form. We see chatbots. If for those of us who are using Swiggy and Zomato, especially Swiggy, we have the Swiggy bot. That is also a classical example of chatbot, which is artificial intelligence based. Next. Fake applications, fake news is now disseminated. So I just want to tell you one thing about fake news. Don't be under the presumption that fake news is not having a specific law. Yes, should you disseminate, share, transmit, publish any fake news over WhatsApp or social media or using any other domain, you can now face criminal charges under the IT Act as well as under IPC. So please don't do that. A caution to all the WhatsApp admin, because you could face legal liability because you also become an intermediary under the IT Act. Next. Darknet. A lot of activities are happening on the darknet. The net we access, beneath there is something which is not accessible to everybody. It is only used. It can only be accessed by specific people using specific applications and browsers. No information or data is available. So if any crime or issue takes place from a darknet, it's also impossible to identify and give an attribution to that particular activity. Yes, a lot of activities are now being done even by state and non-state actors. Yes, if you're looking at tweeting, please be very careful, especially when you're looking at tweeting something about the government and government activities, because this is one such example. Next. Cybercrime stores are now begun. So it's no longer the period of having a hacker or somebody who's doing some things for you. Cybercrime stores are now being available, which are providing access to more than 43,000 hacked servers. Next. Yeah, the government is also taking up a lot of sovereignty on itself, especially has extended its hands for all social media postings. So be very careful on what you post on the social media, because if what you post can expose you to legal consequences and liabilities. Yes, next. So cyberbullying and cyber harassments have already begun, but please report, and reporting is the only mantra that you have. And I would say, please use the report anonymous option, which is made available in the portal cybercrime.gov.in. And I would say the first thing that you and I can do as a responsible netizen is, in case you're bullied or facing any kind of cyber harassment, I would say please report it, and don't stop using social media because of that. So I just would like to talk to you about one instance. There was a case long time back in Delhi where one of the social media users was bullied, and to such an extent that she went up to the social media itself, posted the message on social media saying that this guy is a cyber crook and he's trying to harass me online, and you guys who are available on my friends list and the police should help me on doing that. And NCR police in Delhi are able to successfully nab the culprit, and CNN and other people made this as a cover story, and ultimately that the girl still continues to use social media today and post all the paralytic kind of selfies that you and I upload on the social domain. So I would say reporting is something that you and I have to do, and we cannot just stay away from social media given the present times. Yes, next. Yeah, next please. Phishing, a lot of things are happening, fake login pages. Please observe when you're having links, do not click it. And please observe the pages also very carefully. How is the alphabets placed, and see how the if you have a website address, look at the alphabets, look at the design, and see and check before you post anything online. A lot of things are taking place on SMS as well as emails. Yes, next. Yeah, if you're uploading pictures from your mobile phone, think again. Latitude and longitude can be traced. Yes, next. On WhatsApp, clearly I would like to tell you that whatever you post on WhatsApp, audio, video, image, and text, becomes data or information in the public format, public domain. So please think again. So if you are sharing your sensitive and personal information, then you are no longer, you're stripping off on your privacy and signing off on your privacy. So you can no longer make any noise with respect to privacy breach. Yes, next. So just like to tell you that, yes, there are some unauthorized access. We had the term hacking, but now that's been removed, and we have a number of things that have been brought under. Yes, next. So if you do any of these activities without the permission of the owner of the computer or in charge of the computer, I told you about computer, right? Those three elements. If I do any of these, it's now a contravention. What do you mean by contravention? I can get a compensation by way of damages. So up to 5 crores for each of them. So you do 10, you can be sued up to 50 crore rupees. And where will you go? You will have to go to the IT secretary of the state, who is the adjudicating officer, to handle any kinds of issues relating to this. So should you or your organization face any of these issues, I would say please, and your damages are up to 5 crore rupees, please approach the IT secretary and file a case before him, because he has the power under the IT Act to adjudicate the matters. Next. I know I have only 5 minutes. I'll wrap it up very quickly. Source code, just one word on source code. Please be aware that for those of you who don't understand the source code, IT Act has now come up with a definition for source code. So how do you communicate to a computer or a mobile phone? You run a code, right? And in that code, you give instructions of what should go, how should the code, how should the website or the mobile app or a software operate. This is nothing but the source code. It's the listing of programs, commands, design and layout, and any kinds of program analysis. So this is what we mean by source code. So source code can exist in not only a software, but it can exist on a website, mobile app, a platform, anything. Basically, it is instructions to the computer. And even a washing machine is also having a automatic memory. That is also a computer source code. So anything that you do with respect to source code is also now covered under the IT Act. Yes, next. You knowingly or unknowingly, I'll say knowingly or intentionally, if you destroy, alter, or conceal is hide, or you don't do it, but you cause to do any of these, it's still an offense. Next. So if you commit any offense by using computer, it's now a computer related offense. If you have dishonest and fraudulent intention, that's enough. I'm sure 9 out of 10 cybercrimes have these dishonest and fraudulent intentions. So therefore, they are covered under the broad domain of 66. Yes, next. If you're using stolen mobile phones, laptops, and stolen devices, God bless you, because it's not only the fact that you will be accused for stealing that device, you could also be charged for data theft, specifically with respect to the data in that devices. So think again if you're using any kinds of stolen devices. Yes, next. Identity theft, anything that you fraudulently make use of or dishonestly make use of others' identity, maybe photograph, maybe name, maybe email ID, anything. Fake mails, fake bank accounts, and fake social media profiles are all covered under identity thefts today. Yes, next. And not only that, the classical way to understand impersonation. So if you have a fake profile, that is identity theft. If you chat using the fake profile, it becomes cheating by impersonation. A lot of us understand, right? Fake profiles are created and messages are also sent from that account. That is called cheating by impersonation. So such things are also now covered under the IT Act. Next. Personal privacy, yes. Anything to do with this affecting the individual privacy. All along we thought about data privacy, but this is respective to the individual privacy, that is the private parts of an individual. In case somebody invades or violates the personal privacy of an individual using a computer system, or a mobile phone or communication device, they are now covered under the IT Act. And it's a punishable offense. And the government has now gone ahead and declared some things as protected systems. For example, HDFC, UPI, and also ICICI and NPCI. So if you access these accounts or data or these apps, that is a protected system, 10 years is the imprisonment. So think again, even accidental access can give you imprisonment of up to 10 years. Next. Yeah. Should anybody violate the privacy and confidentiality of yours or your organizations without proper consent, now that's a criminal offense, and you could now charge them under Section 72 of the IT Act per se. Next. Yeah. So should anybody not violate, should any social media or any app or any intermediaries not furnish any information, they could now face criminal charges under these two sections, 84B and 84C. So think again. If you're an intermediary, if you're a company, you don't give the required information, this is what you can actually look at yourself. Next. Next. Doing any penetration testing, cybersecurity professionals, since this is a cybersecurity center of excellence, hosting it, I just talk one word on that as well. Just give me 2 minutes more to wrap it up. I won't take much time. Yeah, any penetration testing activities would have to be documented. You should have a proper agreement defining the scope of actions and activities, failing which it can amount to civil and criminal liability on you and your organization. So if you're into cybersecurity or if you're doing any kinds of pen test related activities, be very careful. Without proper consent and documentation, you could now be in for legal trouble. Yes, next. Yeah, social media posts and electronic records are also evidence, could be used against or for you. Next. So I'd like to conclude by saying that there are 3 things to secure any system: what I am, what I have, and what I know. What I am is my physical self, and what I have is the smart card, dongle, and credit card, debit card, which can be inserted and removed. And what I know is ultimately the passwords or PIN number. I think the different combinations of these 3 will make any system a secured system. So any system is as strong as its weakest link. Yes, next. Cyber resilience would have to be ideally the requirement for any organization today, no matter whether we have been hit or however secured we may be, but if you are hit with a cyber breach or an attack, how quickly can you come back to normalcy is something that every organization needs to look in currently. So cyber resilience plans are now becoming very, very important for companies and organizations. Next. So these are the different agencies as far as cybersecurity is concerned. So the list is available on the screen. The PowerPoint presentation anyway would be shared. Yes. Next. Yes, next. So it is, I just would like to talk about these and conclude. It is not what it seems like on social media. So think again when you are actually trying to do anything on the social media domain. Yes, next. Chat rooms can be absolutely deceptive. Please think again, because we have the saying that the eye does not see what the mind does not know. So I think that's something that we have to clearly understand. Next. Yeah, I think passwords are, even in a lot of companies, admin passwords still remain as admin. I think that should not be the case. Let us wake up and have some due diligence in place. Next. Two ways to look at any subject, active and passive. We have the choice as an individual, as a corporate, we have an option to look at how we would like to comply. Next. So size does not matter, my dear participants. Don't be of the presumption that, I am not a corporate guy. I'm not, the celebrity, who's going to come and attack me. Don't be under the presumption. Size does not matter when it comes to cyber crimes and cyber security, as well as any other activity happening online. Next. So I think this is more, yeah, please go ahead. Go to the next slide. Yeah. Is not something. Yeah, dependency. Yes, please go ahead. I'm running out of time, so I'm just. Yeah, identity theft is already started. Yes. Next. I think Facebook posts, a lot of people are updating status this way. Yeah, please. With Diwali around, please do not try something like this. I think email bombing is something different, where I'm trying to, exhaust the limit given to you, and such that your email gets blocked. You can't send, you can't receive emails. Next. Yeah, I think dependencies to such an extent. Yes. Next. So this is something just to do with cyber hygiene. So I'll just conclude. Yeah. So it's just the passwords are like toothbrush. Yeah. Cyber warfare is now already begun. We've seen Russia and Ukraine. Next. So the problem here is that with all other laws versus cyber law, all other laws, law evolves, modulates, and adapts. But as far as cyber law is concerned, it is we as netizens and users who will have to evolve, modulate, and adapt as even a corporate company. Because awareness is not something that is available, and not many people are aware, and not many people are even aware about the developments happening. That is the usual paradox. Next. Yeah, I think computer has changed all of us lives today. I'm sure with COVID-19 coming in, work from home coming in, this is the present situation. Yes, next. Yeah, please be watchful on what you share online, because there might be things this way. Next. Never ever give up, my friends, in any domain. Challenges are likely to come, but I'm sure. Please hold on to yourself. Next. This is how everybody is following cyber law. Person sitting in front should wear a helmet. So I think this is not something that the law actually requires you to do. Yes. Next. Develop the acuity and acumen in trying to apply cyber law to your organization, to your business. When you're cutting vegetables, specifically onions, tear shutdown, look at the acuity and acumen. Yes, next. I think this is the classical t-shirt, which looks like you're wearing a seat belt. I think this culture has to be changed. That is why I thought, we bring about an understanding and awareness about cyber law and cyber security, as well as, from a corporate as well as netizen perspective, so that we can collectively contribute to a cyber safe, a nation, a cyber state, safe state, and cyber safe organization. Next. So create happiness if you can't find it. And with the last message, yeah, next. So what is necessary is only what is required. Given the short span, I thought I'd just give you an overall concise view about the cyber law that you have to be aware as a netizen, as a corporate. So thank you so much, participants, for bearing with me. I know I've exceeded 7 minutes. Thank you so much once again. I once again would like to thank Dr. Sriram sir and Harshit and his team for this wonderful opportunity to come before you and talk about the cyber law, specifically on this very memorable occasion of 22 years of the Indian cyber law. Thank you so much, sir, at a very short notice for giving me this opportunity. And all the participants, thank you so much. You can reach out to me if you have any questions or queries. I'll be more than happy to take your queries. Thank you so much.
Sushanth, there are a couple of questions. Can you
Please. Please.
So what are the liabilities of a company when the data related to its customer is leaked and it's exploited by cyber criminals? You talked about it. So I think this was a question asked before. 1 minute. Are there opportunities for individuals of 30 plus years age to join law enforcement agencies in fighting cybercrime is what something he's asking. I think that's still, law enforcement is entirely different. I think they'll have to look at, first getting into enforcement first, then they can look at joining, cybercrime department specifically. Is it mandatory to have a company's cloud-based SaaS solution data stored within India? See, specifically, it would be required now to store because, now that we have the new guidelines coming in, I think it is preferred that you have the storage within the jurisdiction of India. Okay. I think these are a few questions which came up. I think you can reach out to Sushanth. You can find his LinkedIn channel also. You can just connect with him and ask him if you have any queries also post the session. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sushanth, for shedding light on the evolution and importance of cyber laws and sharing your insights on an array of topics. I'm sure that the participants have a lot to take away from today's session. On this note, I would also like to thank our participants for taking time off your busy schedules to join us today. Before concluding our webinar, I would like to introduce you all to a month-long cybersecurity school beginning toward the end of October. IDCSS, also known as the Indo-Dutch Cybersecurity School, is a program held by the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence in collaboration with the Hague Center for Strategic Studies, Netherlands. Starting from the 28th of October, it covers a wide range of cybersecurity topics. To learn more about the program, kindly use the link that will be available to you in the Q&A box. Please use the link provided to you in the Q&A box for the program to register for the program. The links to our social media handles will now be shared on the screen as well.
The school is for students and young professionals. So they can register from the link given in the chat box. And for any queries, you can reach out to us on our social media handles or at marketing.ccoe@dsci.in. Yeah. That is it from our side. We thank each and every participant and Dr. Sushanth. We have many more events coming up in the next few weeks. So please do stay connected. Thank you.
Thank you.